Hello, everybody, and welcome to the STN Pro Sessions here. My name is Charles DeWalt. I'm an STN board member from the Southeast Division. Some of you may recognize my voice. I'll let you figure out where you know that voice at. We are pleased to have today our session on film building, bridging cultures through collaborative film projects. And we have three panelists here with us today. Tom Flint is the main person that you'll hear from most, and that's who you see now, but you'll also see Bradley and Raphael. I'm going to assume, Tom, that these are two of your students.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, so we'll see them, and this is being recorded. One thing I will say is during the session, Tom may ask questions, and he'll ask you to raise your hand. You'll use the raise hand feature, in which I will unmute you. I ask that you state your school name, where you're from, and your question for Tom, and then we will mute you back. All right, and without any further, Tom, it's all yours.
Wonderful, thank you, Charles. So I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen right away. So give me a moment here. Okay, I hope that's visible for everybody. That's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So hi everyone, my name is Tom Flint. And I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in making this convention happen, in spite of the difficulties posed by the pandemic. I'm thrilled to be here with two of my students to talk about an alternative approach to moving image education and creation. An approach which I believe provides new and exciting opportunities for growth, both for young filmmakers and the societies they belong to. So I'll introduce the program I now run, which is called Filmbuilding, and then my students, Raphael from Japan and Bradley from Massachusetts, will discuss their experience taking part in a recent workshop. And then we'll leave time for a Q&A at the end. Okay, excellent. So let me go to the next slide here. Okay, so what is film building? Film building is an educational program that curates discovery-based filmmaking experiences to build bridges for change. Its goal is to establish a worldwide network of visual storytellers that can learn and grow from an exposure to each other's ideas and perspectives through collaborative film projects. The program evolved out of a number of personal experiences that I had with film. Sorry about the ringing phone. Being a student of film in both high school and college here in the US, which fueled my passion for creativity and introduced me to the outside world through foreign cinema, particularly Japanese cinema. And living in Japan for 14 years, where I worked as a freelance filmmaker and educator, and developed an interest in Eastern art, culture, and philosophy. And pursuing a master's program in art and design education at the Rhode Island School of Design, where I did a very deep dive into moving image education and reflected on my own experience as a film student and what I had learned living within a radically different cultural context. So while at RISD, I produced a thesis which essentially argued for a more discovery-based approach to filmmaking that ran contrary to the more industry-centric approach that I had been exposed to as a film student here in the US. I realized that the recent democratization of filmmaking, which includes the increasing affordability of movie-making tools and abundance of excellent and free information on the internet, has completely changed the paradigm and given many more the opportunity to become filmmakers. Here's my daughter. Here, Nina, can you go back? Okay, can you go back? Thank you. Sorry about that. Unexpected happy moment. So I also came to realize that the collaborative aspect of film has too often been taken for granted, and that the real treasure of movie making is that it allows us to engage in a sustained creative activity with a group of other people whose reservoirs of experience and insight have the potential to shift our standing. I began to wonder what might happen if students from different cultural circles work together to create films in a more discovery-based way. Okay. So what sets film building apart? What's the actual approach like? So in film building, we move away from the structures and guidelines that are most often associated with filmmaking, and always start with an open-ended theme like home or in between, which invites a wide range of interpretations from the filmmakers. There are no specific roles or hierarchies, and the students are challenged to build a culture within their group in order to solve the problems that consistently crop up during the making of a film. Rather than relying on pre-production material, such as scripts and storyboards, participants must continue exploring and inquiring throughout the entire process, only coming to fully realize what their films are about once they're finished. So the image on the left here shows an approach to media making that is far more common, one that focuses on making the major decisions during the earlier pre-production stage, and then simply executing them as smoothly as possible during the production and post-production stages. This is what I had learned when I was in film school, and also what I was exposed to when I worked on film sets out in Hollywood and also in Japan. The image on the right shows a more discovery-based approach of continuous exploration, which challenges the filmmakers to keep their minds unlocked and remain open to whatever presents itself throughout the entirety of the process. Filmmaking is usually associated with manipulation and control, but here they must let go of some of that control. So instead of making statements, the filmmakers are asking questions. They listen to understand and speak to be understood, moving from certainty to curiosity. They aspire not to create good films, but to create wholly original films that behave differently, acting as more genuine representations of the filmmakers' imaginations and pushing cinema into unexplored territory. Today's students really must understand that there is no shortage of good or polished films out there. It's all over the place. But original films have always been in short supply. Okay. So this graphic illustrates how the concept of diversity is woven into the program and how it appears throughout the 4 primary stages of the film building experience. Participants coming together, oftentimes from various cultural circles. The process of creation, where the filmmaking stages and everyone's ideas kind of blend together. The film itself, which is a direct and honest representation of the filmmakers themselves. And the viewing experience, where viewers are invited to interpret the film in their own way, affirming the diversity of who we all are. So what actually happens in a film building workshop? So we've run a variety of film building workshops over the years, some in person, some virtual, all virtual within the last year, of course, and all of which have been unique experiences in their own way. And I invite you all to check out some of the workshops and some of the films that were made during the workshops on the filmbuilding.org website, which is seen here. Okay. So these are stills from a workshop we held in December, which Bradley and Raphael took part in. And I'm now going to talk about this workshop, which serves here as a good model for showing how film building as a program takes advantage of the unique aspects of collaborative movie making. Okay. With each film building workshop, we always start with a concept or a theme rather than a script. For this particular workshop, which took place between December 11th and 19th of last year, was 2020 hindsight. The workshop involved a total of 13 students, half of whom were from Canton Public High School in Canton, Massachusetts, and the other half who came from Kaitsu Ariake High School in Tokyo, Japan. The students were broken into 3 cross-cultural groups, each of which had the same task, which was to work with their partners to create a short film with footage from all of the members that connected to their group's interpretation of the theme. 1 week prior to the workshop, we held an online orientation via Zoom where all participants could familiarize themselves with each other and the film building process and the software as well, and complete an introductory project. And once the workshop began, we met daily on Zoom, where each of the 3 groups worked in their breakout rooms to decide for themselves how they would build their films. And it was entirely up to each group to decide how best to navigate this really difficult challenge. Where do we begin? How do we move forward? Which ideas do we hold on to? Which ideas do we jettison? And so on and so forth. The workshop culminated with a virtual premiere on the final day, in which all 3 films were screened and discussed with an open audience. Along with Zoom, the students used WeVideo, a cloud-based editing system which allows members to edit their films collaboratively, regardless of where they are in the world. Aside from the software, the only other technical requirement for taking part was to have a camera, such as a smartphone, ensuring that we remained as inclusive as possible. Stripping film down to its most basic elements allows students to interact more closely with the world they're in the process of discovering. And it also narrows the disconnect between the filmmaking experience and the everyday lives the students are leading, helping them appreciate the accessibility of cinema. So I will quickly screen one of the 3 short films that was completed during the workshop. The other 2 films and many others from the workshops, as I mentioned, are available on the filmbuilding.org website. Okay, so bear with me here. Okay, so I'm actually going to stop the share here, reshare my screen, and make sure I'm sharing the computer sounds. Okay, great. Okay, excellent. And I will enlarge this. And here we go.
Outbreak of the deadly coronavirus.
And 2 others going on lockdown. We will be denying entry to Canada.
The country is now on maximum alert.
Declaring the coronavirus a national emergency.
Now spread to Europe, Australia, and the United States.
BTS canceling concerts and
the most diagnosed cases of coronavirus in the world.
2020 Olympics in Japan will be postponed.
200,000 lives lost now.
This pandemic has brought so many negatives into all of our lives. We can't see our family, we can't spend time with friends, we can't leave the house without a mask, economic disparity.
Es ist unglaublich, was passiert ist. Es ist jetzt eine sehr schwierige Zeit für uns.
こんにちは、中川です。で、コロナが始まって変わっちゃったこととかあります？
やっぱり私の机の半分を父親がテレワークで占領してることですかね。
なるほど。大変ですね。
悲しいです。
ウイルスによってなんかコロナが広がって嬉しかったこととなんか悲しいこと1個ずつ。
ネガティブだったことはですね、あれです。出ない、あれだ、出かけられない。もうこれにつきますよ。頭の固い学校が IT 化をちょっと促進させる気になったことですかね。
El año continuó y se hicieron arreglos para establecer la normalidad. Pero todavía es muy agobiante.
Many sports and athletics games and events have been canceled due to COVID.
What was your life before COVID started?
Life was really pretty simple because I was actually on track with my schoolwork. COVID-19 hit, and when I went home, I really wasn't trying with my grades.
School has been one of the hardest changes that I've ever had to adjust to, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And hopefully, what is will be improved very soon.
Okay, wonderful. I hope the sound was okay on that and everyone could hear okay. Wonderful. Okay, great. So now we're going to move into a three-way dialogue between myself, Raphael, and Bradley. And we're going to discuss a little bit about the film building workshop that you guys took part in. So before we get started, could you guys quickly introduce yourselves?
Okay. Bradley, you can go first.
Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Bradley Perlman. I'm from Canton, Massachusetts, which is about 10 miles away from Boston, and I'm from Canton High School. It's great to be here.
Hello. First of all, I'm J. Rafael Tolentino, and I'm so glad that Tom gave me this opportunity, and I'm so happy for people in STN convention. And I'm from Tokyo, Japan. I represent Kaitsu Ariake Senior High School.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Okay, so yeah, let's get started. So my first question is, this was a very different approach to how, movies are typically made. So I was wondering what the major challenges were that you guys faced throughout the process, such as finding a path to complete your films without a guide. What was that experience like?
Raphael, do you want to start off?
I can go first. So first of all, it was honestly scary in the beginning. We didn't really have a guide, and well, sometimes we had Tom and Kazma, like a sub-mentor who taught, who improved our films, technically, but throughout the story, there was no one who helped us. So we had this fear, I had this fear of not doing the right thing, but throughout the film building experience, I feel like I realized that there isn't a specific right thing to do. And, it made me not think, but be outside of the box and improvise outside where I'm comfortable at. and even be creative in that sense. How about you, Bradley?
Well, it was definitely different not having a guide for film building, because usually in public education, they give you a set of directions, then they send you off and let you do your thing. But for film building, he just kind of, Tom really just let us do our own thing throughout the entire process. And we really formed our own experience. And I'm really grateful for that. And it was definitely a different approach to education. And I really enjoyed it. And it was an honor to be a part of it.
Interesting. Thank you. So what was a challenge that you guys faced in your groups? And I don't know if I pointed this out before, but Bradley and Raphael were each in different groups. But for each of you guys, what was a challenge that you guys faced, whether it was related to communication or finding the arc of your story, and how did you solve it?
Well, certainly the time zone was a big challenge. There's a 14-hour difference from Japan to Boston. So we sometimes we had to schedule separate meetings early in the morning for Japan and late at night for Boston. So that was definitely a challenge that we had to overcome. And I thought that the language barrier would be a big issue, but to my surprise, the students from Japan were absolutely fluent in English, and I was really taken back by how fluent they were, and I was just really impressed by that. Raphael, do you have anything to add?
Tom, we have challenges we faced through our experiences, right?
Yeah, and how did you solve it?
Well, I don't know, but I think we didn't really have problems because from the beginning we formed kind of a safe relationship between our group members by like discussing like not just about the film but about our lives and personal lives, and which was like I think that led us not having much challenges or like problems like throughout the film building process itself, honestly.
Yeah. So you didn't start off necessarily diving into what's the story going to be, but you spent the first maybe couple sessions just getting to know each other.
Yes, like most of the time we just started talking in the end. We just talked about the film building itself in the beginning and the end. So like during the middle of the meeting, we just talked like random stuff like what artists do you like, or like what do you do usually in school, or how's your life there? Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me with the workshops that we hold, how even though the groups that are taking part in the workshop have the same parameters, they're working within the same theme, because the members are different, they all approach the process very differently. Some groups dive right into the actual filmmaking, and maybe before even discussing what the film's going to be about, they'll actually just go out and shoot stuff, and they'll bring it back into the editing room and so on. Other groups like Raphael spend a much longer time towards the beginning, just getting to know each other and creating that safe space. But that's completely up to the groups themselves. Wonderful. Okay, next question, guys. You know, how did your projects evolve from the beginning to the end? Because this was not a linear process by any means. What was that evolution like?
Wait, so can I go first, Bradley? So our editing process, like the film building process itself, is I think very interesting because usually you start from the beginning to the end, but our group started from the middle of the film because we had the clips ready, and then we sort of like went through the middle to the end and the beginning in like both ways, because like we were building up on the middle of the film, which was I think interesting and like a funny way to edit a film itself.
Well, for my group, I know for the first day of film building, we really were just bouncing around ideas for our film, and it took us a while to kind of settle on one specific idea. And once we settled on that idea, we were very set. We were like, yes, this is what we were going to do. But then as the week progressed, we realized that we might have to simplify our film a bit. And I think by having the process not be drawn out and having only a week to do our film, it kind of makes our films short and sweet and kind of allows us to express all of our ideas in kind of a short time span.
Excellent.
Oh,
go ahead.
How did you settle on an idea, Bradley? Again, I forgot. You told me that.
So we had many different ideas, all of different genres, but I think for our idea, we actually combined several of our ideas and took the best from each of our ideas, and we kind of combined them all into one consecutive film.
Excellent. Great. Yeah, I mean, sometimes when you mentioned the word, I think, like drawing your films out, and sometimes I imagine if you could map out the actual trajectory or the path that you take as you're creating your films, what would that map actually look like? It certainly wouldn't be a straight line. It would probably have all kinds of, turns and going backwards and then going up and then going down. So it's interesting to think about. Cool. So shifting gears a little bit, what sort of understandings did you all reach by working with people from a different culture? What was that like?
Well, I definitely learned more about how other cultures view film and video production. It's definitely very different from the US, and I'm really grateful that I got to see a different perspective on this whole medium. And also, we got to witness how another culture was going through 2020. It was certainly extremely difficult for the whole entire world last year. And I think that it was really interesting seeing how another culture went through 2020 and how it impacted the world globally instead of just our own country or even state. Raphael, do you want to elaborate on that a bit?
Can you hear the surrounding noises? No, not really.
A little bit. It's okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Well, personally, I didn't really. Wait, I'm sorry. Personally, I didn't really feel I didn't really feel the difference between my culture. I didn't really feel the cultural difference. More like, well, I felt the difference, but personally, I feel like I felt more familiar with the culture. Like it was like local and familiar than like different, in my opinion.
So you're saying you expected there to be larger differences between, Japanese culture and American culture. Interesting.
Exactly.
Could you give an example about that, Raphael?
Like throughout the film, like the one that was screened a while ago, our film, like we used multiple shots from different places, but they ended up like merging in together very well. And I feel like you wouldn't usually expect like two different countries like merging in that well, I think. Yeah.
Interesting. Great. How about you, Bradley? Did you notice any cultural differences in particular that you didn't expect?
Definitely. Before coming into Filmbuilding, I was expecting that our cultures would be extremely different, just two countries, two extremely different styles of living. But as the workshop progressed and I got to learn more about the lives of my group mates and the way that their daily lives and their daily routines, I learned that our lives are more similar than I thought. And it was really a great experience building new friendships that I hope are going to last for a very long time.
There was one thing I was kind of surprised during the film build. Like, so when we were filming and I was editing and looking through all the clips that my American members had, like seeing the big windows and the big doors even the big streets. And I knew that it was like snowy. There's a bunch of snowy mountains in Boston. I didn't know that they literally had snowy biome right behind their house. So that was like interesting in my opinion.
Very interesting. Thank you, guys. Great. And let's wrap it up with just a final question. What were the major takeaways from this experience for you two?
Raphael, would you like to start off?
Takeaways meaning like what we learned throughout.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, like after the film build, we had like in my school we had a bunch of film building projects too, and like because of this, like not knowing that there's no right answer, I feel like that encouraged me to start leading the projects itself. Like I started leading and editing the film itself, like without any guides. So I think that's the biggest one for me. What about you, Bradley?
Well, I think my largest takeaway is how, as I was talking about previously, how similar our cultures really are. Prior to film building, I'm kind of repeating myself, but I thought that our cultures were very diverse. And like Japan, the biome, as you were talking about, is extremely different from Boston. And the people and everything from food and so on and so forth. But after film building, I really gained a better sense of other cultures and how they view film and how they view film and television. And my largest takeaway, I think, are the friendships that I made. I just really am grateful for everything all the friendships that I made throughout the workshop. And I am keeping in touch with my counterparts even to this day. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And it was great to have you take part in this. Yeah, wonderful. Very quickly, before we move on to the Q&A, because we have just about 10 minutes left, I did want to close with something. So if I could just share my screen very briefly one more time. Okay, great. Okay. So, as we move through these times of division and uncertainty, I think, we've seen how urgent it is to understand and communicate with one another, especially as opportunities for intercultural exchange are only going to continue to grow through globalization. I've had the great pleasure of working with the organization called Urban Media Arts, which is based in Malden, Massachusetts. And I'm happy to say that we now have a dedicated team of people working on expanding the program and testing out various new applications with the imperatives that are seen here. So we're essentially asking ourselves, in times of uncertainty, how can we use the creative and collaborative aspects of film in order to make meaningful connections that can contribute to the development of the societies we're a part of? So how can you engage? For students, we will be holding our next workshop in the spring and more throughout the summer. And we're starting to look for members to take part. And later this year, we're also going to be rolling out the Film Building Grid, which is a virtual club that will allow members to connect and work on various filmmaking challenges collaboratively, kind of like a social media network. For educators, we're in the process of finding ways to strengthen the program and reach more people. So if you're interested in taking part in an intercultural media education symposium that we're going to be hosting later this year, or enrolling your own students in a workshop, then please do let us know. So I'm going to attach a link in the chat here, which is a form that you all can fill out if you'd like to get engaged. So bear with me. Let me find it here. Okay, I'm pasting it in the link right here in the chat box. And it's also available on the Filmbuilding website at filmbuilding.org. Okay, great. So Raphael, Bradley, and I are here to answer any questions you guys may have. So please fire away.
This is Charles with STN. So if you have any questions, attendees, please raise your hand using the raise hand feature. Then I will unmute you. Please state your school name that you're from and your name and your question, and then I'll remute you back. Okay, so I'll watch for hands being raised. Any questions? Okay, Ed, there you go.
Hi, Ed McDonough from Canton High. I'm curious, filmmaking is solving problems. What were some of the problems you guys had to solve in the middle of your process to make deadline?
Well, it was a challenge getting our footage and editing. I think those are the two main things of film building, obviously, not film building, excuse me, not film building the program I'm talking about, but film building as a whole. So editing our footage collaboratively, I've actually never edited collaboratively with anyone before, so that was a completely new experience. And it was a challenge even finding times to go out and acquire our footage. And Raphael, I'm a little lost. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, like Bradley, I'm gonna add on to Bradley, but we really didn't have like an idea of what to film. So we just went out to the streets and then we just started filming. Like usually you would like things you wouldn't film, like streets that you're used to seeing, and yeah, like trains, I guess. Yeah. And like problems we faced is well, my problem personally is shooting like by myself. That was a big issue I had, but that's very technical. But yeah, like I even one of the clips I had to act was like filmed the day before the premiere. And I had to edit that in like 10 minutes before the premiere. So that was interesting. My opinion, yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? Ed, did you have one more there? I'll unmute you if you needed to, but I see you still have your hand up. Any more questions, anybody? Okay. Very interesting topic and very exciting to see something like this happening. At STN, we try to have great collaborative things like this, and this is really great that you guys did something like this. I'm extremely proud. Do we have anybody else that has any questions about this before we end? One more, Ed.
So normally in filmmaking, you have a start with a script and move forward. This was more organic. You found some footage and then collaboratively try to discuss what you had and then create a script in essence. Can you talk a little bit about that backwards process?
Bradley, can you go first?
Yeah, sure, I can go first.
Sorry.
No worries at all. Well, it's definitely different working without a script, because normally when I make my films, first thing I do is think of an idea and write a script. But with film building, we were really just given a topic, and then we were set to create a film about that topic without creating a script or any of that. So it was definitely a different experience, and even challenging at some times. But in the end, we were able to produce a great end product, and all the other groups were too. Like amazing films all around, and I'm just really proud how we overcame these obstacles and produced amazing end products. Raphael, you have anything to add?
Mr. McDonough, what's the question again? I'm so sorry. do you have to elaborate more on the backwards process?
Normally, when you make a film, often when you make a film, you start with a script first. You guys didn't. You guys got footage and then developed the script from that footage. Can you kind of talk about how your idea grew and what were some of the moments that really spurred you to get the concept to come together?
Well, I think what worked for us is we always communicated the things we added or the things we changed. Like every time we add a clip or something, like we had this culture or like ground rule to always communicate through the group chat. And I think like that helped us like not understand each other, but like acknowledge the fact that there's changes and then that we have to put like changes on top of another changes. And then yeah, I think that connects to like the creative aspect of film building workshop itself.
Charles, if there are no other questions, I actually just something popped into my head that I'd love to ask Bradley and Raphael.
Sure, we'll do that, and then that'll wrap it up because we're at our time limit coming up.
Okay, Raphael, you just mentioned something interesting about like the like the culture of your group, and it's interesting to think about culture in those terms because we often tie culture to nationality, don't we? But I'd love to hear from each of you. What kind of culture do you feel your group formed? If you could put it into words, how are each of your groups different?
In my in one word, I would say I'm gonna summarize it as like clarity, I guess. Like even though like throughout the workshop, you don't know what your film is gonna be, but every meeting, like every Zoom session we had, we always talked in the beginning, in the end, what to do, like what we did in the beginning and what we would do or what we should do in the end. And like, I mean, that I think consistently created clarity, not clarity, but it made us, you know, I think that rule kind of made us unique in that culture. Yeah. What about you, Bradley?
I'd say one word to describe my group is open. Whenever one of us proposed an idea or a change, we were all very supportive and open to that idea and willing to make that change to improve our films. And I think that is one of the most important aspects for a group in film building. No matter what, you always have to be open to other suggestions and ideas because you never know if it's going to make a better end product. And I'm just really glad that my group embraced that.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you very much, Tom, Bradley, and Raphael. We appreciate you coming on tonight for this afternoon for STN, depending on what time zone you're in. Tom, greatly appreciate your presentation. Very good. And we will. This will be trimmed down, and we'll be able to put it up on the STN website in the bulk for teachers and students to go back and watch again. So for all those students that are currently still watching, I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll turn it over to the next panelist section that'll be coming up for the next pro session. So have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.